welcome back to the Emily Knits podcast channel. It has been a couple of weeks since I've been here. I took a break last week, just didn't have time to film for you properly, but we are back and I'm back with a traditional format podcast episode, and we've got quite a lot to talk about, so I'm not going to do too much waffle. We're going to get straight into it. I'm expecting that this might be a little bit of a long one. We've got 2 finished objects to talk about. We've got 4 WIPs, 2 of which you've seen, 2 of which you haven't, and a bit of a yarn plan to talk about. I have got some acquisitions, but I'm not going to mention them in this episode just because there's quite a lot to talk about anyway, and I think the better way to do it might be to basically, when I use them, I will talk about them a bit more. So I have a cup of coffee, as always. I'm suspecting, like I say, this is going to be a little bit of a long one, so if you grab yourself a drink, grab yourself a snack, grab your knitting, and let's dive in before I waffle any further. So let's first off talk about what I'm wearing, which is my first finished object, which is the Jantje tee by Herbgarden Knitwear. I mentioned this on the last podcast episode, which would now be 3 weeks ago. Just get my little book. So I've got all my notes. It would be my last podcast episode was 3 weeks ago. I think I was quite well up the body. I hadn't split for the sleeves or anything like that yet. But I said I'd hoped I would get it finished by the next episode, and I did, as you can see. So this is a bottom-up t-shirt, summer t-shirt, that's knit with these lovely garter sort of ridges and this lovely lace panel which goes all the way down to the bottom, and then at the bottom you have like you cast on almost in like garter stitch, if you can see that there, and you've got a similar kind of binding around the neck and around the sleeves. It has these lovely little frilly sleeves, which are not something I would normally gravitate towards, but I think really balance out the sort of almost quite geometric look of the lace and the garter that gives it these vertical lines and then horizontal lines, other way around, vertical lines and horizontal lines, and then the little frilly sleeves. They're fun. They're really fun, and they balance it out quite nicely. This was a super quick knit, so I knit the size 2XL. Hannah's more recent pattern, she sizes in numbers, and we're going to talk about that in a minute because this is also a Herbgarden Knitwear pattern that we finished to talk about. But in the older patterns, which this is one that's a little bit older, I think it's a couple of years older, she used like extra small to extra large kind of thing. So yeah, I knit the size 2XL, and the size range for this is a 2XS to a 5XL, which goes from a 26-inch finished bust all the way up to a 63.5-inch finished bust. Hannah's patterns are super size inclusive. I really highly recommend them. I've got another one of hers in my queue, and I've finished another one here, which is a test knit. And yeah, really, really underrated size inclusive designer. So I would highly recommend you go check her out. She's fab, absolutely fab. I knit this on 4.5mm needles in the Stylecraft Naturals yarn. Now I think the recommended for this is Herbgarden Lena, so this would also work really well in Drops Bell, which is kind of a dupe for it. I've never knit with Lena, so I can't, I've said this so many times now, I can't tell you if it's a proper dupe for it, but it's the exact same composition, and it's quite a specific composition, so I think it's probably a fairly good dupe. But I had this in Stash, which is, it's a DK weight, 60% bamboo and 40% cotton yarn, and it's got a really nice sort of weight and drape to it. You can see the drape there. It's also got a nice sheen to it as well. It is this is the shade Nutmeg. It comes in some really nice shades. I've used the shade Celery before, Spring Green and Ecru, which is like a creamy off-white. And they're all really lovely shades. It comes in a really nice shade range. And it is, so talking about the costs and the amount that I used 359 grams for this. I think Hannah's patterns are quite generous on the yardages that they suggest, which is a good thing, because if you want to add length and things like that, then you can. I added a little bit of length to this, so I think I added 1 extra pattern repeat. Essentially, you knit the pattern repeat and it tells you to repeat a certain number more times for your size. I think it was like 10 times for my size, and I knit 11 before I split for the front and back and started working my sleeves. And that's made a really nice length body that hits me right at where I would like a t-shirt to hit, which covers my belly and sort of sits, I guess, on my hips, but it's a nice fit. What was I saying? In one ear, out the other. Yeah, so I knit this in, like I said, 2XL. I added a little bit of length, otherwise I knit it exactly to pattern. And I used 359 grams. So 100 grams of this is 250 meters. So I've used whatever the maths is on that. And I was talking about, that was it, I was talking about Hannah's generous yardages. So I bought the amount of balls that I would need for the recommended yardage in the pattern. So I bought 5 balls of this, and actually I've used 3.5, 3.6 nearly. So I've got quite a bit of yarn left over, and I could have got away with 4 balls. So this is £4.99 for 100 grams, and I would have needed 4 balls of this to complete this in my size with a little bit of length added. So this would have cost me £19.96. It's really quite cheap. Like I said, I bought 5 balls, so I spent just under £25, 24 something, but I've still got 1.5 balls left there. So I could have got away with 4 balls. I think I mentioned in the last one that this was a super quick, super satisfying knit. It was kind of that perfect sort of potato chip knitting for me, because you start from the bottom up, and it's I think it was a 10 round repeat between the garter stitches, and it's a really easily memorizable repeat. So it just, like, I found it really easy to go, I'm just going to do another stripe, I'm just going to do another stripe, I'm just going to do another stripe. And I knit this super quickly. I knit this in under 2 weeks. From cast on to bind off, under 2 weeks. I haven't properly blocked it. I've steam blocked it, which has really opened up this lace, which is really, really nice. It goes all the way down. But I haven't wet blocked it, and that's partly because I like the feel of this yarn when it hasn't been properly wet blocked. I've knit something else in, and it almost loses some of that silkiness when you wet block it. So just out of a texture thing, I kind of want to keep this unblocked for as long as I can. But the steam block has really opened up that lace and really let these drape and sort of settle down, which is really, really nice. The back and front are exactly the same. There's no short row shaping, and I really like the little details, like the bind off. The bind off particularly was like a truster pattern kind of thing, the bind off for the neckline. So you pick up, you essentially knit one row, and then you instantly go into a bind off, but it's a bit of a different bind off than I've done before, and it creates this really nice neat edge. Essentially you just bind off purlwise all the way around, and I was knitting it thinking, I'm not sure about this, I might want to add some ribbon, and then I finished it and went, no, I love it, I absolutely love it. The one thing to note, and I think I've done mine a bit loose, is that it's a bit wide on the shoulders, and that's possibly my yarn choice because this is super drapey, but if I just sort of finesse it a bit, it sits where it should. And then with my hair, you don't see that anyway. I've worn this quite a lot already. I've worn it on for work when I work from home, so it looks really good on Teams calls. I've worn it to lunch with my parents. I've worn it to a craft beer festival with my other half that we went to. It's a really nice, easy throw on piece. What was I going to say? Yeah, it's not a super light piece because it's DK weight, so it's not like on the hottest days it's been a bit too hot to wear. But for most of the summery days in the UK, this is absolutely fine, and I have really, really enjoyed it. I'm really pleased with it. Very easy pattern, very self-explanatory pattern, very well written pattern, and very size inclusive, and also quite budget friendly. Quite, you know, you could quite easily find a DK alternative yarn. And Drops Bell would also be a really cost-effective choice, which would be an exact same dupe in terms of the fabric content as the lean that she recommends. So go check it out. I very highly recommend. And the other thing that I finished is here, and is also a Herbgarden. Oh, trying to do it in the camera. Also a Herbgarden Knitwear pattern. I'm not going to put this on for you because it's not quite dry yet. So this has been washed and blocked. Oh no. And it's got all creased because I've laid it down. This is blocking basically, and it isn't quite dry yet, so I'm just going to hold it up and show you. But this is my completed Reveries Tee test, which is also for Hannah of Herbgarden Knitwear. So it's this all over stockinette t-shirt with these lovely eyelet and cable details. You can see it best on the neckline. Ribs into eyelets into cables that then go into your stockinette, and you've got the same on your sleeves and the same on your hem, rib, is that what it's called? This, in complete contrast to this one, was not a quick knit. This is extremely fine, light fingering weight yarn on 3mm needles and 2.25mm needles for the rib. This has taken me more like 2 months to complete, but I'm super, super happy with it. So this is, I knit the size 12. This isn't out yet, like I said, it's a test knit. This isn't out yet, but the test is coming to an end in a couple of weeks, and I think then the pattern will be released fairly quickly afterwards, and I would definitely recommend this if you are looking for a very polished, finessed kind of garment, maybe similar to maybe the Cumulus Tee or something from my Petite Knit, but an alternative. Obviously it's not the same as the Cumulus Tee, but because it's the same kind of yarn size and needles, you get that same kind of very polished look. Excuse the creasing, that will come out with not knitting a petite knit pattern, which I will always recommend, because I just think there are so many underrated designers who don't get the attention that petite knit gets, and deserve it, basically. Again, just like our other pattern, this is actually, if anything, even more size inclusive than the other one, because it's one of our more modern patterns. So it is sized in numbers, and it's a similar size range. So it goes from a size 1 to a size 18. I knit the size 12. And the size range, sorry, I'm reading out of my book, is 29.75 inches finished garment to 64.25, 64.25 inch finished bust. And the reason I say it's more size inclusive is because there are 18 sizes between those ranges, between that size range. Does that make sense? In those inches there are 18 different sizes, whereas on the other one, 2XS to 5XL is not 18 different size ranges. So there are a lot of different sizes with quite a small difference between them, so you can really find something that really fits what you want it to. And it was a really simple but effective construction. So you knit from the top down. You can see it's a circular yoke because you can see my increases here. You knit from the top down, you do your ribbing, you do your eyelets and your cables, which are really well explained and very simple, and very effective. Then you do a load of increases, you split for the sleeves, you go all the way down your body and there's no shaping on the body, and then you do the same in reverse at the bottom, and then you pick up for your sleeves. They're quite short sleeves, they're only like 14-15 rounds of stockinette before you go into your eyelets and your ribbon. I'm going to talk about the yarn, and then I'm going to put this down because I'm getting fed up of dangling it. So I knit this in the Fantasy Yarns cotton. Oh, why am I acting like I'm trying to remember it when I've got it next to me? Fantasy Yarns cotton, 50% cotton, 50% bamboo yarn. How strange. I was thinking, slight tangent about Fantasy Yarns. I found these just through Googling alternatives or light fingering alternatives, because the recommended yarn for this is Knitting for Olive Pure Silk. And I didn't want to knit this in that. I wanted it to be a bit more budget friendly. And I found Fantasy Yarns by Googling light fingering weight summer yarns, basically, or something like that. And I discovered yesterday that they have an Etsy, and they've got a bit more on their Etsy than they have on their website, because I ordered through the website. And I thought, oh, it must say it on the ball band because it definitely talks about the social media. I must just have missed the Etsy, but actually that's what I was pausing for. I've just realised it says social media. Feel free to contact us on Fantasy Yarns, Instagram, Pinterest and the website. But it doesn't mention Etsy. And they've got more on there. They've got like mystery ombre cakes and things like that. So, I can't talk about yardages and costs yet, and it's my own fault. So, when you purchase this by yardage, not by weight. This originally came in a big cake, by the way. It looks pathetic now, but it came in a big cake and I've been pulling from the centre. So I picked 1500 metres of this, which is the shade Lilac, and this is, I think I said, is a 50% bamboo, 50% cotton blend. 3-ply light fingering in the shade Lilac, like I said, and that is, it's washing the purple out a little bit, but it's a fairly true to real life colour. It definitely is a light purple, whereas I think that's almost coming across as like a blue or a grey on camera. But it is definitely a sort of very light purple, and the colour looks really nice on me because of my hair and everything. It sort of lends itself to it. I'm going to put this down now and fidget a bit. Yeah, so you order it by yardage rather than by weight, and it comes in a big cake that says 1500 metres on it. And what I should have done is when I got it, weighed it, so that I could then weigh what that was, and that's my yardage for how much I've used, because I've got a fair amount left actually. There's quite a kind of, you can tell there's really quite a lot there. It's very fine yarn, so there's really quite a lot. And I didn't do that. I forgot to weigh it when I got it. So what I'm going to need to do is weigh this and weigh that and get the total, and then do it that way. And I'm not going to do that until it's fully dry, because at the moment it's a bit heavier than it would normally be because it is a bit damp. So I will work out the yardages and the cost. I think, looking at how much I've got left, I think I could have gone for a smaller cake. I think again Hannah's yardage estimates are generous. which is nice. It's nice to have, but it does mean I could possibly have gone for a smaller cake. I didn't add any length, so I'm pretty certain that is going to hit pretty much bang on my belly button. So it's going to be a little bit cropped, but it will hit exactly where the top of my jeans hit. It will work really well over dresses. It will work really well with skirts. So I knit exactly to pattern. I didn't add any length, and I could have done. But yeah, I think what I'm thinking is I probably could have gone for that. I think there's a 1,250 metre cake. I think I definitely could have gone for that looking at this. So I will, once I've done that, I will work that out, and I'll maybe in the next video I'll try that on, and we'll talk about some costs. But I really rate this yarn. It's been lovely. A couple of things to note that I keep forgetting to mention, and one I have mentioned. So one, this is very splitty. I don't know if you can see that there. It's quite loosely plied, so I can't not look at it while I'm knitting, which also made this take a bit longer because it's 3mm needles, so it's a long project anyway. But given that I had to look at it, because otherwise I was splitting the yarn constantly, meant that it did take a bit longer, and it also meant it was a little bit hard to get up on my needles. So I've got an interchangeable set that are lovely and smooth, but because it's such tight splitty yarn, that some of the strands would catch at the bottom of that, and it became really hard sometimes to get back up on the needles. So that's maybe worth mentioning. But I do really like this, particularly as an alternative to something like knitting for all of pure silk. It's got a lovely drape to it, a lovely feel to it, a silky feel, and I think it's a really nice alternative. It also comes in an absolutely massive size range. Let me see if I've got the numbers here, because I did it for another video. I worked them out. Yeah, okay, so it comes in 33 solid colours, 3 melange colours and 28 ombre colours. So there is a massive, massive size range in this. Some of the melanges are beautiful, and if I felt like knitting this again, which I currently don't because 3mm needles has absolutely killed my hands. And actually no, 3mm hasn't. The 2.25 for the rib has really, really killed my hands. So you could do it in all sorts, and I would definitely knit that again. I'm just not going to do it again straight afterwards because, yeah, knackered, fed up with such small needles. But those are my two finished objects, and I would very highly recommend both of them, and I would very highly recommend Hannah. She has a really wide range of patterns. She's got some fantastic summer knits, and some brilliant sweaters and things as well. She's got some socks, I'm pretty certain, and some accessories. And I really don't think I hear enough people talking about her. She's absolutely incredible, and I would highly recommend go check her out. Okay, so moving on to WIPs. What should we talk about first? I'm surrounded by them. Let's start with this one. This one's going to be relatively quick because I've talked about this before. I've made some progress on it, but I'm not going to try it on today because it's not on try on tubing, and I can't be bothered to put it on it. But I'm hoping that for next time it's going to be finished. So I'm going to give a fairly quick overview of this. And we'll go through it in more detail next time when it will be done. I'm putting it out in the world. It will be done. So this is the Tendril tea test for Sophie of the Knit Purl Girl, another fabulous designer. I highly recommend. Last time when I spoke to you and I showed you, I think we just had about maybe this much of the back panel. There wasn't much. So I've made some quite significant progress. That's the back and that's the front. And the thing that I love about this, and that's the detail that makes it the Tendril tee, is this beautiful cable detail down either side of the neckline, neckline. So this is, I don't know what size I'm knitting. I think I'm knitting like a J. I'm about two below the biggest size, and I'm knitting this in Drops Bell, which I said I would talk about. This is the one that I talk about that I think is a dupe for Sanis Ganlina. Certainly the percentages, the composition is. So this is a 53% cotton, 33% viscose and 14% linen blend. This is the colour Zinc, which is a really nice dark grey with some almost purpley bits through it. So it's very definitely a warm grey. And I've really enjoyed knitting with this yarn. It creates a lovely fabric. And it has also given really lovely definition to these cables. I think they look absolutely stunning. This has been really one of my hairs on it. Really enjoyable to knit. It's the construction that I absolutely love, which is a drop shoulder construction. So you cast on at the back and you work down your back panel. You then come back round to the front, pick up and work one of your shoulders, pick up and work your other shoulder, join flat for the front, knit to a certain distance, join in the round, and then I am just on the stockinette in the round for the body. And I have, what's that, probably about 4 or 5 inches. This is on 4mm needles. It hasn't had massive amounts of work in the last sort of week. I got until the sleeve split. No, well, yeah, the sleeve split, but it's not a split because you're not coming upwards. The joining in the round. On Friday morning last week, and I haven't, that's sorry, give me a sec, this is bugging me. Massive chunk of ends hanging out. There we go. Yeah, I've done all that in about a week, but on 4mm needles I probably could have done more. It's just been that I've really been focusing on that to get that finished because I was so close. So I just need to finish the body, come back and add the neckline and do some sleeves, and then it will be done. And I'm hoping this will be done for next time and you'll see me wearing it. And that's all I'm going to say about that for now. Like I said, we'll go into it in more detail next week because it'll be done. Next fortnight when I film a podcast because it'll be done. Okay, 2 other things that you haven't seen before, and then one big one that you've seen a swatch for, but it's going to take some talking about. So let's go through this one first. This is something that is very... What is that? Oh yeah, there's that to talk about as well. I forgot. This is something that is very, very different for me, but I'm very much enjoying it. There is a lot of difference for me in this. So this is a... Oh, I'm halfway through a row. Let me just finish that. Why have I left it halfway through a row on lace work as well? Emily, you know better than that. So while I'm knitting, let me talk you through what this is. This is a sample knit. I've just dropped a yarn over. Have I? No. This is a sample knit for Botanical Yarns, who are a yarn dyer based near York, in Yorkshire. So that's very near where I'm from. I grew up probably about half an hour away from York, and my parents still live around there. And I actually spent a bit of my early 20s living in York. I spent a lot of my 20s, well, late teens, early 20s living in York, working in York, and then in my early 20s I lived in York as well for a bit. So York is quite close to my heart, and she's a fantastic dyer. Sophie's a fantastic dyer. So she put up a sign-up sheet a couple of weeks back for sample knitters. I've done a little bit of sample knitting before, and I found it a little bit stressful, but honestly I think it was the time that I was doing it. So I was doing it around Christmas. So I had gift knits on, I had quite a lot of other test knits on, and I also think the way that Sophie did this is a little bit different in that she sent out to all of the people who'd expressed an interest in sample knitting a list of the patterns she wanted sample knitting, so you could go and see them, and there were some that I looked at and thought, I don't want to do that. So I was able to pick one that I liked. Getting towards the end of the thing now, so I'll show you this in a sec. Whereas with the others that I've sample knit before, it's basically been you sign up to sample knit, you know it's going to be a jumper or a hat or whatever, and then you see the pattern once you've agreed to and you get it sent to you. So sometimes, like, I think there was one that was a hat and I was like, it's not something I would normally choose. And this isn't something I would normally choose, but the style of knitting is, because I was able to look at it. So now I've finished my round. Let me just pull the needle out so I can show you. This is the probably poorly pronounced Piennar top by Veera Välimäki. I'll show you the back panel, that's going to make it look nicer. The colours are beautiful. So this is the back panel, but if I put it like that, you can... Famous last words. If I put it like that, you can see it a bit better. So the colours are stunning on this and not things that I would normally pick. So this is a drop shoulder construction again, which again has been lovely. You start in the middle at the back, you knit down your back panel and you work these lace panels, and then I've picked up one front panel and done some increases, and then I've just finished, or I'm just about to finish this one. I've got finished the lace and then a few rows of this green yellow colour, and then I will join flat in the front, and then I'm working down the body. It is a summer top, and it's knit. This is knit in these two beautiful colours from Botanical Yarns. I don't know the base, and I'm going to ask the base because I would really like to try this for myself. And I know one of the colours, but I don't know the other. So this is the Alchemilla Mollis colourway, and it is a beautiful musty, yellowy, limey green, really nice colourway. And wouldn't that look good? Yeah, that would look really good with my skin tone and my hair. The pink is something I would never normally go for, and on its own, oh, do you know what, it probably does suit me, but I just don't like pink very much. I'm not sure what this is. I thought it was their Antique Valentine colourway, but I don't think it is, because when you look on the website, their Antique Valentine is this kind of base colour, this mauvey, pinky purple, dusty pink, which is really nice, but it's got browns and things in it. And you can see, if I hold up the lace panel, it's tonal, semi-solid tonal. There's some lighter bits in it, but there's no browns or anything like that. This has been really enjoyable to knit. The yarns are beautiful to work with. I don't know what the base is, but like I say, I really want to know because it's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. It's really soft, really plump, but still really drapey. They have a non-superwash merino and linen base on there, and I do sort of wonder if that might be this, because there are also some longer fibres that I'm finding from time to time, which could be the linen, but I will find out. And next time we talk about it, I will let you know. And the lace has been really fun as well. So my heart sank a bit when I started knitting this, and I knit my swatch, which is here, because I didn't realise until I started knitting it. There's some quite intensive things in this lace. So everybody is generally, if you're an experienced knitter, you will be familiar with slip knit and knit two together. I have in one pattern before, I'm looking at the book over there, 52 weeks of socks, a lace sock pattern, done knit three togethers, which were hard, and slip knits. They were hard, they hurt my hands. And interestingly, I was talking about this to Lauren of Work Knits, because we had a fab little virtual knit night, the two of us, the other week, and she was saying she has made a single field mitten by Camilla Vad, and hasn't wanted to go on to do the next because that had slip knits and knit three togethers, and they were so hard on her hands that she hasn't wanted to go on to do the next. This has knit four togethers and slip knits. Initially, the first time I did it, I was knitting this swatch, and part of me went, I can't do this. I'm going to have to tell the designer I can't do it. One sec while the dog finishes scratching. Pepper, hey, what's this? Pepper, what's this one? Come here. Stop scratching. Come here. Come on, come in your bed. Come say hello. Are you coming to sleep? Come on then. Come on then. Oh, I got a bit of a... There we go. There you go. Your breath stinks. I need to get you some Dentastix. Whilst I am otherwise preoccupied, yeah, they're hard. The knit four togethers are harder than the slip knits, but neither of them are easy. Neither of them are easy, and thankfully the yarn has been the saviour on this, because the yarn really makes the difference. They are doable, and again, it's a fairly easy, I think it's like a 14 row lace repeat, and you only do the lace rows 3 times in that. The rest are all stockinette, or stockinette with some knits and purls, basically. What are you doing? And it's really knitting quickly. Every time I sit down to do a little bit on this, I end up doing a massive amount, because again, potato chip, I can just finish the stockinette and I'll just get on to another lace panel. Oh, I'll just do this next bit of lace. So yeah, really like this. And this isn't something that I would normally choose for myself, but knitting it, I'm sat here going, I could wear this. I like this. So I do think I might. So the payment for the sample knitting from Botanical Yarns is store credit. And I think I might order myself the yarn to make a Piennar top for myself. Did I say it's by Veera Välimäki? I think I might have forgotten that. And this is the first time I've ever knit a Veera Välimäki top, and I'm quite liking the pattern. It reminds me a bit of the Skein pattern that I knit, in that there is not a lot of hand holding. It's quite, I think it's only maybe like a 3-page pattern, so it is quite basic, but everything that you need is there. And it comes in sizes 1 to 8, which is a 35.5 inch finished bust to a 71 inch finished bust. And it recommends 6 to 10 inches of positive ease. I am knitting the size 5, which is what I've been requested to knit by Botanical Yarns, and that is actually the size that I would knit. So I can see how it would fit on me when I get to the end. The one thing I think I would change if I was doing it myself is, hopefully by this point I will have put up pictures of what it actually looks like. And I just think, and this is personal preference, it's got such lovely delicate lace and things in, that I think the ribbing at the neckline and the sleeves and the hem looks really heavy for it. I think this would look better with a I-cord or with something like this that's very simple and very sort of light to really let the lace shine. So I think if I was, obviously for this I will knit it to pattern because this is what I've been requested to do. But I think if I was doing it myself, I would most likely change the neckline. I'm knitting this on 4mm needles. I think the recommended size is 3.5, but that was a bit too small for me on gauge, so I'm on 4mm needles, and I'm getting gauge really nice and easily actually. So that's going quite quickly. Did I say I'm knitting I did say I'm knitting the other thing on 4mm as well, didn't I? Let me just adjust and then we'll talk about the big boy that we're all wanting to know about. Oh no, we won't. We've got one more thing to talk about quickly first. Dead leg. Okay. 2 more things. Sorry, I've just noticed one there. I don't know why I've brought this with me because it's... Oh no, it is attached. That's why. So, I had no... What's it caught on? No. I have had a craving for crochet recently, and I think part of that has come from... I've got a lot of things on very similar needle sizes. So the Tendril is on 4mm, the Botanical Yarns is on 4mm. We've got we had a 3mm and we've had a 2.75mm as well. And sometimes my hands have been quite sore, and I have wanted to still be doing something and still be making, but I've not wanted to be knitting because that movement has hurt my hands. And I've really craved crochet. So I've picked up some crochet, and I've picked up some crochet particularly to use up some yarn that I have in stash. So this is going to be quite hard to show. My neighbour's just started mowing our lawn as well. I hope that's not too bad. We're just going to have to carry on. This is going to be quite hard to show because it's one of those hexagon cardigans, which means that it's essentially a big ruffled handkerchief type thing. But if I sort of fold it in half how it's going to go, you'll be able to see it a bit better. So this is the Mezzo cardigan by the Make and Do crew, who are a relatively recent discovery for me. So they have a Revery page. You can see this a bit better there now. I've folded it. They have a Revery page. They've got all the projects on Revery, and I don't know how much to tell you because they are paid for on Revery, but there is also a free version on the vlog, and I've been using the free version. It's doable. There are a lot of ads, so it's maybe worth buying the paid for one, but I'm not. I'm just not. But I decided, so I have 4 balls of this in stash, which is Stylecraft Grace, which I've written down the composition because I couldn't remember what it was. It is a 85% acrylic, 10% mohair and 5% wool yarn. It is extremely fluffy, and you might have heard me mention this before because I made my weekender sweater out of it, which was one of my least worn knits, but that wasn't anything to do with the yarn. That was actually more than anything to do with the pattern. And while I was working on that, that was in the shade a green shade. It wasn't forest green, it was something else, maybe like khaki. Anyway, I decided I wanted to make a cardigan out of this shade, which is Oyster, and I was going to knit a cardigan. I had a pattern in mind. I ordered myself a full sweaters quantity. I don't know if you can see, it comes up fully cream on camera, but it's actually a bit more like, it's got a bit of a pinky tone to it. Can you see? No, you really can. Oh, you can a bit there. It's almost got a bit of a warm pinky tone to it. In hindsight, I don't really know why I got this colour, because whilst it suits me, it really does suit me actually. I am a toddler. I spill things, I stain things, I get food on things, I get drinks on things, I get ink on things from my pens at work. I don't know why I thought cream was a good idea, but here we are. And I bought 4 balls of this, which is quite a lot actually. So this is supposed to be an Aran weight yarn. 100 grams gives you 295 meters, and just to put that into context, the Stylecraft Naturals, so it's by the same brand and they do market that as a DK, 100 grams gives you 250 meters. So actually it's supposed to be an Aran, but I would say it's a DK, and it's possibly a light DK as well. But I wanted to use it up, and I haven't wanted to knit with it. I don't think it was the most enjoyable to knit with, and I didn't really like the knit fabric. And then I just had the inspiration the other day when I was craving a bit of crochet. Why don't I crochet a cardigan with this instead of knitting a cardigan? And it's lending itself really, really well to crochet. You can see the stitch definition is lovely, despite having this sort of fluffy halo to it. It's got a really nice drape to it, and it's very, very soft and fuzzy. And this will be a lovely, warm, soft, fuzzy cardigan for just sort of throwing on and slopping around on the evening. So I'm not far off finishing this first hexagon. I need to crochet another hexagon, and then you obviously join things together and everything like that. And I'm very much enjoying this. I don't usually like crocheting these. They call them puff stitches, but I've seen them as popcorns elsewhere. These little sort of cluster stitches, but actually even they're enjoyable because the yarn really seems to lend itself to crochet. What is going on with the colour? There we go, that's better. Everything's coming out quite pink. It seems to really lend itself to crochet, and it's very, very fun to do. And the thing I always love about crochet is how quick it grows. This is only a couple of nights of work, but the thing is, if I add a row to this, I'm adding about half an inch. Whereas if I add a row to a knit thing, what you add in, maybe 1/4 inch if you're lucky. No, you're not unless you're on massive size needles. You're adding what, a couple of centimeters, so it grows much quicker. I think I might need some more yarn, so I've just joined my second ball, and I think I'm probably going to use at least 1/3 of the second ball to finish this first hexagon, and then I need to do another hexagon exactly the same, and then some joining. So I think I'm probably going to use most of the 4 balls on the hexagons, and then I'll probably need 1 more ball to finish it. But it is £4.99 a ball, so again, it's quite affordable. Stylecraft really seem to like that price point, £4.99 a ball. It's quite affordable, and I'm really glad to be using something out of stash that I didn't really know what to do with. And again, it's been really satisfying to be able to pick this up and just work on it when my hands are sore. I don't want to work on knitting, I just want to work on something and not really have to think about it. So I've very, very much enjoyed that. One thing to note, the pattern suggests a 6mm hook with DK weight yarn. I went down to a 5.5 because I didn't have a 6 to hand, so I went for a 5.5, and actually I'm still over gauge. I'm slightly looser than gauge anyway when I crochet. I'm a bit of a loose crocheter, but that is more than, normally I only need to go down 0.5 millimetre and I'm good. I'm quite considerably over on gauge, and I'm not really bothered because I wanted it to be oversized anyway. I've I've crocheted the size large, which was going to be fairly close fitting. I don't know why I'm doing it there, like it fits this bit. It's going to be fairly close fitting, but obviously with cardigans like this you can add length where you want, you can add bits where you want them to. But I think given that I'm over gauge, I'm probably going to have a nice oversized cardigan anyway, just knitting the large size, crocheting the large size. There are loads and loads and loads of free patterns on that website, so if you are looking for some free crochet patterns, there's some tops, summer tops, there's cardigans, I think there's probably home accessories and things as well. There are paid for versions of all of them, but there also are free versions, which is quite nice. And I've really enjoyed this. I think this yarn really lends itself to crochet. And when I went on Wool Warehouse to check the yardage and the cost and everything prior to filming this, when I got it before, I think there was only about 4 or 5, maybe 5 or 6 different colours. They've released 5 new ones. So now, yes, great, I'm getting it out of stash, but my head's gone, that colour's nice, I want that one. What about that one? That looks nice. You can make a cardigan in that. That looks great. So I'm probably going to end up ordering some of that at some point. But that's the Mezzo cardigan. Okay, so let's get a drink and let's get into the big boy that you all want to know about, which is my wedding dress. So this has been a journey. Just put it that way. Let me get out where we're at without pulling anything off needles, please. This always gets tangled. Every time I bring it out, it's tangled. Okay. So, we're getting there. Sort of. Yep. So this is where we're at. What's that? About an inch? Yeah. And this looks like so little work. This has been such a journey. So, let me talk you through why, when you saw a swatch and I was going to be casting on 3 weeks ago, I've only done an inch worth of work. So this has been a journey. So before I start launching into what challenges I hit, and it's all around gauge, so please don't be put off from doing this pattern. It's not the pattern, it's gauge. So this is the MELIDES dress by Yanii of vertknit. This is an existing pattern. You can currently go and knit this. She's currently also running a test knit, which is what I'm doing, for expanded sizing, and I think she's tweaking some bits for clarity in the pattern as well. So that's what I'm doing at the moment. The test knit has a deadline in September, so it's got quite a long deadline, and I chose to knit my wedding dress in test conditions basically because if you haven't been here for other episodes, I'm engaged. We are getting married actually later this year. We're going to go into that in a bit more detail at the end if you want some knitting life updates. Knit and chat, sorry, life update kind of things. And I decided to do it under test conditions because I knew it was going to be a challenge, and I wanted to do it in an environment where, first off, there's a deadline. So I get it done. I mean, there is a deadline of getting married, but, you know, another deadline. So I get it done, and also the designer is there that I can ask all sort of questions from. And one real benefit that I've discovered has been that you've got a bunch of other people who are also knitting it, who are essentially being fabulous cheerleaders. Absolutely fabulous cheerleaders. I am knitting this in the recommended yarn, which is Knitting for Olive Pure Silk in the shade Copper, which is really beautiful, and I'm super happy with this colour. I think this colour is absolutely gorgeous. So why are we only here? So first off, to explain why it looks like this. So you start at, and this will explain part of the amount of work it's taken, you cast on using a provisional cast on, Judy's Magic cast on, and this is essentially my waist. You know, there's no point me holding that there because you're not going to be able to see it. This is essentially my waist, and you cast on with the provisional cast on there. You put your bottom row of stitches on hold, and you knit upwards basically. So you knit in the bodice, and then you go back and you pick up again from there, and you work down to work your skirt, which is why it's on some weird cables and it looks very strange. But it also explains part of the reason this has been so much work. So I swatched originally on 3mm, which is the recommended needle size for the pattern. That was too small. My gauge was way off. I was off by about 3 or 4 stitches and several rows. My row gauge has been a challenge throughout the entire thing, but Yanii has a row gauge adjustment calculator in there, so that's not the end of the world. So I went up to a 3.5mm. I swatched, and the swatch was chef's kiss, absolutely perfect. So I cracked on and I cast on for the size that I'm doing. So I can't really tell you what size I'm doing because the whole thing about this is that you work out your measurements. Let me show you in here actually, because it doesn't give anything away because it's just scribbling. You take lots and lots of measurements. You take lots and lots of measurements and you do some calculations, and essentially you then work out from there the sizes and things that you need for each area. So you do different sizes, and then there is instructions on how to tailor that to fit you. So I'm not knitting a straight size. There isn't a straight size in the pattern really. No, there is. You could do that, but the whole point is that you don't, and it's tailored. So for the size that I'm doing for my waist, I have to cast on like 260 something stitches, but it's Judy's Magic cast on, so you're casting on 2 for each of them because you're doing it. So I'm basically casting on, what's that? It's over 500 stitches, isn't it? 500 and something. And I counted wrong on the first cast on, so I had to do it again. But then I cast it on 3.5mm needles, and I got about 1.5 inches done. And I thought this looks really loose. Why does this look so loose? So I popped it around my waist. It was massive, absolutely massive. So I checked my calculations for my waist, my measurements, fine. Checked I'd picked the right size, fine. Checked my gauge. Somewhere in the knitting of it, my gauge had gone from perfectly bang on what it needed to be. So I had about 4 or 5 extra stitches per inch. And bear in mind that I was doing the size for like a 44-inch waist. Every time I think about that, it makes me laugh. So for every inch, I was doing probably about half an inch of extra stitches. It's no wonder it was massive. So, yeah, I had to rip that out. I then went down to a 3mm and tried to cast on again, and I got right to I cast all my stitches on. I did my 500 odd stitches, and then you do the first row that you do back is a setup row where you place your markers and everything. I got to the end, and I'm counting my last bit, and I was like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And I went, there's supposed to be 20 more stitches there. I'm supposed to have 30 in that section. There's only 10. So I go back and I count all the way along. I'd not cast on right, and so you cast on, you go across this way, and then you work back. So it's not even like I can just add on some more stitches at the end, because my working ends are at this end and I'm at this end. So out that came again, and I cast on again on 3mm, and I was working on this when Lauren and I had that knit night, and I got about 1.5 inches done again. I got about 1.5 inches done, and I thought, this is looking much better. This is looking so much better. The next morning I thought, I'm just going to put it around myself. I'm just going to check just to make sure, but this looks really good. It was too big again. My gauge had changed again, and it was too big again. It wasn't as big as the first time, but it was still, it overlapped in the front, and it shouldn't. And at that point, I could have cried. So I re-swatched on 2.75mm needles after having gone on the Slack group that we've got for the test knit, and cried about it a little bit and had a bit of a freak out. Just basically sat there thinking, I'm never going to be able to get gauge. This is not going to work. I can't do it. And somebody else, a few people had the same problem, that your gauge swatch obviously is very small. It's, what is it? It's 10 centimetres by 10 centimetres, 4 inches by 4 inches. When you're then casting on such a much bigger piece of fabric, sometimes your gauge changes. And a couple of people had the same problem, and they just were really encouraging me to just go swatch again. It'll be all right. Just go swatch. Just try it. So I swatched again for the 3rd, 4th time on 2.75mm needles, and it's bang on. So I went to cast on again. I got the cast on wrong again. Thankfully I didn't count wrong this time. I just lost count, so I had to rip it all out and start again. But thankfully, when I had the right number, got to the end of my setup row and everything was correct, and I did most of this last night actually, and I put it around myself this morning, and it's perfect. It's where it needs to be, and the relief. So I've cast this on now 6 times. And the other thing to note is that, so I started originally on some much too short cables. So I went and ordered one of these really long cables for my interchangeable. This is like a 1.5 metre cable, because I wanted it to be nice and long so I could take it round. And then I realised that really I should have ordered 2 of those, so I could have one for the top and one for the bottom. So I went back and ordered another. And then I did all that only to realise that my interchangeable needle set goes down to a 3mm, and I needed to go smaller than that. I needed a 2.75. So I somewhere had it in my head that I had it in my head that unless you got something like the Addy clicks or whatever they're called, I thought all interchangeable sets had a fairly interchangeable connector. So I thought, okay, I can't get, it's the Knit Pro Mindful collection is mine. I thought, well, I can't get them. They don't exist in a 2.75mm, but higher do, and I'm sure they'll work. So I ordered that. I waited for that to come. And then yesterday, day before, whatever it was, I got it out and I pulled everything out and I got to my cable and I got the needle, and there's a screw on this and a screw on this. There was no hole to put it in, basically. So they don't work. So they're going back. Got some, I think I spent like £9 on 2.75mm tips for higher needles. I have nothing that works with them. So, and I didn't have a connector. I tried it. There's a little connector that's got a screw that I can use to connect 2 cables together. The bore was too big for the screw on the higher highs. So they're going back to Wool Warehouse. It's been such a challenge, and for such a high stakes thing, I was sat there like, I'm going to cry, I can't do this, why have I done this, this is stupid. And it got to the point where I've had a couple of things where I've seen adverts for clothing on my Facebook and my Instagram, and I've been like, that dress is nice, just save that because you might need that. But I think finally we are on the way. The fabric is lovely, the gauge is exactly where it needs to be, and I feel a bit more like we're cooking with gas now. I also had to recalculate most of my numbers. My measurements are all the same, thankfully, but my row gauge has changed, so I needed to recalculate all my row gauge factors and everything like that. We're getting there. So just a note to say, if you were going to knit this pattern, be prepared that initially you might find that you gauge swatch and it's all perfect, but you cast on and then your gauge is completely different. So yeah, that is where we're at with that. I'm super happy now. I've got it going. I've got another virtual knit night this week, hopefully. I think we said Thursday, and they're great for just because it's mostly, I've got some increases to do, but I haven't got to do them for a few more rows, and it's just knitting one way, purling another with some slip stitches for those little seam details, and that's basically it. So I can do that fairly quickly once I sit and put my mind to it. But again, I'm on 2.75mm needles now, so that's where that crochet comes in, because my hands are sore after a bit of it. But I'm pleased now, it's going the right way. We're getting there. So the plans for the next couple of weeks are to really focus in on this more than anything else. What I might do is just do a bit of, I want to do a bit of crochet. Shall I do some crochet? No, we'll talk about this first. So I've essentially used this as a swatch. When I ordered my needles from Wool Warehouse, I decided I did that thing that I think a lot of us are prone to as human beings, and this isn't just specific to knitters. Let me move this out of the way. Where in my head I was like, oh, I could just buy this one thing for £9, but then I pay shipping. If I order some more stuff, I get free shipping. So it would just be massively cheaper just to buy the thing and pay for the shipping, the one thing that you need, but none of us do that, do we? So I bought some yarn to get it over free shipping, and I bought myself some more drops of saffron. So I've been wearing quite a lot my Wicker Dreams tank top by Celine Feyten, which I think is coming out shortly actually. The test knit's coming to an end. But I finished it a couple of weeks ago, and I've been wearing it quite a lot, particularly as the weather's got warmer, and that is in Drop Saffron in the shade Red Clay. And because I've liked it so much, I decided I was going to order some more. This is the shade, I think it's just navy and off-white. We'll go into them more in detail next episode, because this will have some more progress on it next episode. To make the April camisole, also by the Knit Purl Girl. I mentioned this in my spring summer patterns I want to knit video. If you've not seen that, there'll be a link down below, or go check my channel out. And I used this as a swatch, but I'm not going to do any more until I've finished something. So this is, this is what this is looking like. This is really hard to show because it's a really small amount of knitting, but essentially I finished just over one of these stripe repeats because I wanted to see how it worked, if the yarn looked all right, if the colours went well together, and if I was happy with the fabric, and I very much am. I don't like these needles, but it's the only 4mm I have free. So essentially I've used this as a very, very small swatch, but I'm not going to do any more work on it until I've finished either the Tendril Tee or the sample knit for Botanical yarns. One of the other of those. I'm not putting anything else on the needles until I've done that. And I mean it. I know I say that all the time, and then I come back with 10 new WIPs the next week, but I mean it this time. So yeah, that's where we're at. I'm going to grab my Tendril Tee actually, and we'll do a little bit of knit and chat, because a couple of things I wanted to talk about. There's not massive amounts of life update. I mentioned briefly when we were talking about the wedding dress, we have actually set a date for the wedding, which is actually going to be in the back end of this year. It is after the test knit for the MELIDES finishes, so I do have some time after that if I need to make some alterations or anything like that. But yeah, we basically just sort of thought, we're not planning on doing, as you might have guessed from the fact that I'm knitting a wedding dress and I'm not knitting it in white, we are doing a very, very small ceremony. We are just going to the registry office with me and my other half, obviously, and like immediate family, parents. We're not doing a big reception, we're not doing anything like that. We're just going to go have some food afterwards, and essentially we're going to go on the money that we would have spent on a single day is going to go on a honeymoon next year, which we're planning for, and it's very exciting at the moment. So yeah, so there was no need to wait for years because we didn't need to save for it. We're literally just doing the statutory ceremony at the registry office and that's it. So yeah, we have moved it forward a bit, which is very exciting. So this year I will become a Mrs, which feels really grown up, like I'm in my mid-30s. Like, it's no big deal, but in my head it's like, oh god, adults do that, you're not an adult, what are you doing? But yeah, we're actually, next week we are going to give notice, so we're doing the legal bit and then we're well in the way. My other half has found a suit he likes, we're looking at rings, and that's about all we need really. So yeah, that's all extremely exciting. The other thing I wanted to talk about is related to the channel. So we are immensely close to 500 subscribers, which I only started this in January, and I genuinely thought, do you know what, if I get 10 people watch my video, great. I didn't think it would be particularly popular, but it has been. So I'm really, really grateful. It sounds like small numbers when you compare it to some of the big YouTubers, but as my other half pointed out, if I imagine 500 people sitting and watching me talk, terrifying, can't do that. So thank you all for being here. The reason I mention it is because I think as of filming we're on about 480 subscribers, so we're very, very close. And what I thought was, when we get to 500 I would do a bit of a giveaway to say thank you. And what I thought was I would have a couple of prizes, one for UK based and one for international, just because unfortunately I'm not in a position to be able to physically ship yarn overseas at the moment. I don't even know where I would start looking at postage for that, or how much it would cost. But what I thought was we could run a pattern giveaway for international viewers, there we go, subscribers, there we go, that's the phrase I'm looking for, and run a physical giveaway of some yarn for those in the UK. So if that sounds like something exciting and you want to be in with a chance to win with that, if you're one of the people who watch and haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button. I think we're like, say, 19-20 people away from 500. And if you are interested to be in the chance to win some prizes in the next episode, hit the subscribe button. Make sure you hit subscribe. It would really, really just make me super happy, because like I say, getting to 500 subscribers is not something I ever imagined, certainly not in the first few months. And I really appreciate all of you. I've had some fantastic interactions with some of you recently, people that I've met through the knitting community that I wouldn't have met if not through this hobby, and who have been really, really wonderful. And I love to see you all here in the comments. I see the same names coming back again and again, and I really, really love having you here. One thing I was going to mention as well was somebody asked in one of my last episodes, somebody asked if I could talk about the YouTubers that I watch. And I absolutely will, but I'm not going to in this video because I'm looking at the time I've been filming and we're nearly at an hour already. So I don't want to add that onto this and make it a really long video. So I'll either do a standalone video in and of itself, do like a knit and chat like this, and we'll just talk about some YouTubers, or I'll put it on the end of the next podcast if there's not that much to talk about. So I will do that, absolutely. And that will be coming fairly shortly. I am going to be back to the regular schedule now, moving forward. Like I said last week, I was travelling for work. I didn't get back until I'd been away the Thursday, Friday. I would normally film on the Friday or the Saturday, Sunday, either on the Friday or the weekend. But I didn't get back till late on Friday. With our work schedules, I hadn't seen my other half very much that week, so I just thought, you know what, no, I'm not going to be able to put my full effort into it this week, so I'm not going to film this week, and I appreciate all your patience with that. But I am now going to be back to my regularly scheduled alternating weekly videos, but alternating between a podcast episode and something different on the other week. So we will have some other things to talk about, and I am separately, obviously I'm talking about my wedding dress as a WIP, but I am fully documenting the process as well, and at some point either one video, or depending on how much footage I actually have and how long it takes, maybe 2 videos to keep you updated throughout it. We will be talking about some wedding dress progress videos. I might try and put one of those up relatively soon. Now I'm actually cooking on gas and getting some progress on it. So that's what you can expect from me coming up. So if all of that sounds interesting, and if you would like to, like I say, if you'd like to get us to a point where we're running a giveaway, make sure you hit the subscribe button and turn on the notifications so you are notified when I post. But it tends to be every weekend, at some point during the weekend. It varies. I try and do it on a Sunday at the very latest, obviously, but sometimes it's a Saturday, sometimes it's a bit sooner. And yeah, that's everything I wanted to update you on. So I hope you guys have had a lovely week, or weeks since I last spoke to you. I hope you've had some time to do some knitting whilst we've been chatting today. I hope you've enjoyed the update. There was a lot to talk about. I'm looking at the chaos around me. There was a lot to talk about. But yeah, it's been lovely to catch up with you all, and hopefully I will be back to catch up with you again very soon. Have a good day. Thanks, guys. Bye.